Have you ever tried to read a really old book, maybe something from a few hundred years ago, and just struggled? Even though it's technically your own language, it feels almost alien, right? Well, that's because languages are not set in stone. They're alive, they're breathing, and today we're going to dig into exactly how they evolve over time. Just look at this. This is a line from an English Bible translation from 1395. You can kind of make out some of the words, but the spelling, the vocabulary, it's a real head-scratcher for anyone speaking English today. And here's the kicker. That is English. It's a direct ancestor of the words I'm speaking right now. This one sentence is all the proof you need that a language isn't some fixed object. It's a living thing that is constantly and often secretly on the move. So, here's our game plan. We're going to start with this whole idea of language being alive. Then, we'll dive into how its sounds and word meanings shift around. After that, we'll see how languages steal from each other. And finally, we'll look at the really slow-moving stuff, grammar. Okay, first up, why do we even say a language is alive? Well, it's pretty simple, actually. The only languages that don't change are the ones nobody speaks anymore. They're dead. As long as people are using a language, it's going to evolve right along with them. What we speak today is really just the latest version of English. Linguists break down its history into these big chunks. Old English, it would sound like a totally different language to you and me. Even early modern English, Shakespeare's language, can be a real workout. Every one of these stages is just a snapshot of a language that never, ever stops moving. So, what we're really talking about here is this thing called language change. It's just a natural process. It's not about a language getting better or worse. It's about it adapting, just like an organism, to reflect the world of the people who speak it, their technology, their culture, all of it. So, what's one of the first things to start changing? The sounds. The way we pronounce things is one of the most fundamental and, believe it or not, one of the most predictable ways that languages evolve. And here's the really wild part. These changes aren't just random. Nope, they follow patterns. They're so regular, in fact, that linguists can use these sound laws like a kind of linguistic DNA test to trace languages back to their ancient common ancestors. It's like detective work for words. Let's look at a perfect example of one of these sound laws in action. Check out these words from a few related Polynesian languages. See the pattern? Wherever Tongan, Samoan, and Tahitian have a T sound, Hawaiian almost always has a K sound. Taha becomes kahi. Tangata becomes kanaka. It's a perfect, consistent shift. And this little rule even affects us. The reason we say taboo in English is because we borrowed the word from Tongan. If Captain Cook had picked it up in Hawaii instead, we'd be talking about things being kubu today. How weird is that? And don't for a second think this is just some ancient history. Sound shifts are happening right now, as we speak. In parts of the American Midwest, like Chicago, there's a huge vowel shift going on. For them, the vowel in block has moved so much that it sounds like black to people from other places. It's literally evolution in action. Okay, next up, words. This is probably the kind of change we notice the most. Words are constantly being born, they're changing their jobs, and they're dying out. Vocabulary is always in flux. A huge reason for this is just life changes, especially technology. In the 1850s, if you said cell, you were talking about a prison room. Today, you're thinking of your phone. A virus used to be something that only made you sick. Now it can crash your computer. Our world changed, so the words had to keep up. But words also change in more subtle ways. We call it linguistic drift. Promise used to mean a serious pledge someone made. Now we can say, the day promised to be lovely. The day isn't making a pledge, right? Or think about the word actually. It used to mean in reality, but now we just throw it in for emphasis. It's become a kind of verbal exclamation point. Of course, the best example of all of this is slang. Slang spreads like wildfire. It creates new words for new feelings and ideas. And then, poof, it's gone just as fast as it appeared. You can basically think of slang as language evolution on fast forward. So, we know languages change from the inside, but they are also massively shaped by the outside. Because, as the saying goes, no language is an island. They're always bumping into each other. Anytime different groups of people interact, whether it's through trade, migration, conquest, or even just binge-watching shows from another country, they swap words. It's inevitable. This borrowing is a huge, huge engine of change. You can literally read history in a language's dictionary. For hundreds of years, much of Spain was ruled by Arabic speakers, and you can still see the evidence today. To say bricklayer, Spanish uses albañil from Arabic, but right next door, Portuguese, which had less of that influence, uses pedreiro from Latin. You see it again and again. History leaves a footprint right in the language. And this story is universal. It's why English is stuffed full of French words after the Norman conquest. It's why Japanese has thousands of English loanwords today. All languages are, to some extent, a collection of words they've picked up on their travels. All right, last stop. We've talked sounds and we've talked words. But what about the deep architecture of a language? Its grammar. Well, that changes too, but it happens on a much, much slower timescale. It's a real slow grind. Over the last 1,000 years, English grammar has done a complete 180. Old English was what we call a synthetic language. You knew a word's job in a sentence because of its ending. That meant you could move words around pretty freely. But modern English is analytic. We've lost most of those endings, so now strict word order is king. Dog bites man and man bites dog are two very, very different things. And you can even see these grammatical drifts between super closely related languages. To say smoking is forbidden, Spanish uses one form of the verb to be, está, while Portuguese uses a different one, é. It's a subtle difference for sure, but it shows that even the most fundamental rules of a language are always slowly, quietly shifting. So when you put it all together, the changing sounds, the shifting meanings, the borrowed words, the grinding gears of grammar, you see that language is so much more than just a tool. It's a living record. It's a map of our history, of migrations, of innovations, of our entire human story. Every time you use a new piece of slang or pronounce a word a little differently than your parents, you are an active part of this ancient, unstoppable process. The language you speak today won't be exactly the same as the one your grandchildren speak. So the final question really is, what changes are you helping to create right now?